So in this video, we're going to be replacing the head clamps on a 540. It's an older 540. That's the old one. This is what we're going to replace it with, is this new style, which has a single motion, a cylinder to raise it up, and it's much more positive and much more accurate. So we're going to start by removing the bolts out of the rods, these two bolts down here, to take this end piece off. We're going to take the bracket off here, the stop bracket, and the slide rod off of this side. We're going to take the bolt out of the end down here to remove that slide rod, and then we can take the thing apart. We have it off, we can clean up the other slide rod. The slide rod we removed, and the inside of the spool bushing, because we'll be reusing that. So the new assemblies will show up pre-assembled and look pretty much like that. When you get them, this cylinder should not be attached. It should be in a separate box in there. And when you install the cylinder, be sure that the flow controls are on the inside edge and not on the outside. If they're on the outside, they'll catch on things and they'll be getting broken off. So they need to be inside like this one is. There are lefts and rights. As you can see, this is a right and this one's a left. So be careful of which one is which. So we should be able to slip the bushing right over the slide rod. So, then we can bring the cylinder up and reattach it to the alignment insert like it was on the old one. Now we can put the spool bushing, kind of noisy. Now I can put the spool bushing back in, the slide rod. So this was the old stop block that came off. We're going to discard that one, and instead we're going to install this one with the valve on it. Now there's only two of them, and that's the left-handed ones, this one and the one in the opposite corner, that get the valve. The right-handed ones, we reuse the old stop blocks, and they don't have a valve on them. So we're going to install that onto there. That. Then we can put the bracket back on the end to hold the two slide rods. So after we get this installed and where it'll move back and forth, then we need to take a 5/16 by 1 1/4 inch bolt, set it in here, and we'll adjust it so that it presses this valve all the way in, but not over presses it. About like that, so that it presses it almost all the way in, but not quite all the way. And we can tighten the lock nut. Right. Now that we have everything mounted, the next thing to do is hook up the hoses. So we've got 2 hoses to connect to here, and they basically connect to this cylinder. So that when the cylinder is pushing the head clamps in, we want this to pop up so that it can clamp the head, and then when it returns, we want it to go down. So to get it to come up, we want to put air pressure there. You get air pressure here when it's pulling this in. So we're going to take the line going here, we're going to put a T in it, go to the back of this cylinder. Right? So when this pulls in, it will come up. The line from here goes into the bottom of the valve on the front side closest to the plunger, and then we'll take a line from the top of the valve around, and it'll plumb into the front. Now that, since there's only one valve at this end, that line that we tee in up here also has to have a line that goes all the way down, around, over, come back up, and go to the front side of the cylinder on the opposite side. We're going to tee into the hose at the back of the head clamp cylinder. That hose will come around over to the bottom front. This other fitting is unused, the bottom front. And then from the top fitting, we're going to go back around to the front end of the lift cylinder, which is the down. That can be seen in the schematics. This is the valve right here. And you see the hose coming from over here, goes to the 2-port side, and from the 1-port side, it goes out to the rod end of both of the cylinders. The rod end of the header clamp cylinder with a T and an adapter so we can go to a smaller hose, take this over to the back end of the clamp up cylinder, the new clamp up cylinder. Stick one in here too. You got the hose. So we're going to take another one, we're going to put it in the hose going to the back of the clamp cylinder. I need your cutters. Yeah. So we're going to cut that one also. Just put a T in that. And an adapter down to the smaller hose. And now this hose will go to the bottom of the new valve that's on the header clamps. That goes to the rod end of the new cylinder. Comes up to this Y, it goes to the rod end of the cylinder. This hose coming off the other end of the Y goes all the way over to the other side and connects to the rod end of the other cylinder. Rod end of the other cylinder. You don't want them to come slamming up or go down too fast either. They need to, this one's coming down too fast. It's going to, once you get the hoses hooked up and you've tested it to make sure that they function correctly, then you'll come back and shorten them up, tie them up and get them neat so that they're not in the way of anything, right? And also, when we talked about putting the cylinders on and running the flow controls toward the plate as opposed to away from it, and this is the reason, is because it gets really close to this blue bracket for this wheel. And if those flow controls were on the outside, first time you turned the air on, it would break them off. Passes that blue bracket, it gets very close, and that's why the flow control needs to be on the plate side of the cylinder.